Jason mentioned I commute between Kansas City and Cleveland, and I consider Kansas City definitely one of my two homes. I should say he didn't fall far from the apple or the tree, because I happen to know Jason's dad, who served as lieutenant governor for the great Buckeye State once upon a time, and is a hell of a politician and a great public servant. So thank you for that warm welcome. Jason had challenged you all to get uncomfortable this morning. I was trying to think what I could do to do that, and some suggestions were the Harlem Shake, or maybe some Gangnam Style, and I'm sure if I did that up here on stage, you would become very uncomfortable. So we're not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to take this opportunity that we are afforded the privilege as a sponsor to come up here and give you a little bit of a commercial about us, but it's not really in that vein that I'm up here talking to you. It's really to talk about how activities like Big KC fit with the mission of what we're trying to do. And as I've been listening to the speakers coming through here, one of the themes that keeps resonating with me, and it's certainly interlaced in all of the activities and priorities we have at the foundation, is that community. We keep coming back to community. As I think about this, and this might be profound, so I'm going to let my great colleagues here know I might say something noteworthy. I really think that community is a form of currency in our economy. And what I mean by that is the value of community seems to be elevating. People are understanding how to leverage community, how to extract value from it, and how to collaborate through it. And so it is very consistent as we do things to promote community effort that we honor our namesake, Mr. Kauffman. Because Mr. K, as he's affectionately known here, he understood that supporting kind of an ecosystem, a community that values education and entrepreneurship will lead to a population, will lead to communities of individuals that contribute significantly more to their community than they take from it. And it was really that sacred charge that he bestowed upon us, his intent, that really gives us the privilege to do the things that we do on multiple levels. As I mentioned, he saw that kind of the bookends of community building to be education. If you can't start with a fundamental, basic education, you never get out of the starting blocks. And there's no way you even have a chance at winning any race if you can't get out of the starting blocks. On the other extreme, he saw with the baseline education, you'd have a different mindset to understand the unlimited potential that embracing entrepreneurship could afford you, a self-directed life, if you will. So manifesting those priorities, things that we have done in the foundation, I think a few of you have been at the foundation for 1 million cups or a hacker event or programming class. Show of hands, how many have been at the foundation? Oh yeah, that's 1 or 2, or 12, or 100. There's been a perception that we've done a lot, in particular in the last year. And we appreciate that the community is taking notice. But we want to add to your perception and understanding of what we're actually doing. And so here's just a little snapshot in the last 5 years of the kinds of things that we have done to support the community of Greater Kansas City on both education and other civically minded activities that we do. I don't want to go for 2 hours, so I'm not going to read the whole list, but the point I'll draw your attention to is that 67% of our total foundation budget is being locally deployed. That is not insignificant. For many, it's in ways you don't have visibility to because it's serving underserved population from an education support standpoint. But we're here, we're making an impact, and most importantly, we're fulfilling the intent of Mr. K. Now, this is my bowl of wax here, the entrepreneurship strategy. This is what I have the privilege to manage. And I got to do one quick shout out to all the Kauffmanites that are here. I've got one of the best jobs, I think, in the country. Big part of what makes it awesome are the people of the foundation. So we're all my Kauffman family. just raise a hand, please. If you guys get a chance to see them, you know a lot of them. I'm the lucky one that gets to be up here on the stage. You know, guys like Nate and Cameron, you've seen around the events, they do too. But it's really the effort of a lot of people and partners like Silicon Prairie. Our E-Ship strategy is pretty simple. You know, we're trying to equip the community with the tools, the resources, the networks that'll help promote, start, support the growth of companies that are going to generate jobs, create wealth, contribute back to society. We also have a whole division dedicated to on the policy front, researching what the impacts are, understanding the phenomena of entrepreneurship, and really helping lawmakers and policymakers understand why they need to embrace an entrepreneurial mindset themselves and support you in your efforts to do this kind of work. I talked to this point about local and community. We have many events, many things that we sponsor like Silicon Prairie News. You know, one of the reasons we're really embracing this relationship with SPN is because I think in too many communities the narrative is around, you know, developing the next Silicon Valley. You know, that's not what we're doing here. We're developing the Silicon Prairie. And I really see that we've had a great focus on this effort between Kansas City, you know, Omaha and Des Moines. And there's a lot of energy in this space. But we also embrace our sense of community and responsibility on a global scale. And one of the programs that my colleague, Wendy Gillis, who's hiding in the back over there in communications, that her team and our team collaborate on is Global Entrepreneurship Week, GEW for short. In my humble opinion, it's one of the most impactful, powerful things we've ever supported. Last year, during the third week of November, over 40,000 events around the world in over 160 countries took place, all in the name of Global Entrepreneurship Week. At the midpoint of the year, namely in March, we have what's called the Global Entrepreneurship Congress. And this is kind of like the governing body that does the planning, you know, the learning, the shared learning around organizing the GEW week in November. So it is last week I got to participate in another community, but more of a global community in Rio de Janeiro, where I got this sexy voice, by the way. I don't know why, but going from 90 degrees and 80% humidity to this beautiful tropical climate here gave me a little something to remember Rio by. But it was in Rio that I'm affirmed in our commitment to this. There were over 1,500 delegates from 144 countries, the majority of which paying their own way to come to Rio to participate in the Congress. We also had one of our other grantees that we're a very proud sponsor of, Startup Weekend. I'm sure many of you in the audience are familiar. Yeah, that's right. Give it a big old whoop. Somebody's gonna have to do it for me. I don't have the voice for it. They had their organizers summit too. So, you know, this was nice for us. You know, it's kind of like a proud parent to see two of our very significant grantees working together. And as I said, a lot of these people pay their own way to get there, and they do it because they're passionate about advancing entrepreneurship. So I want to share just a little story that came out of my trip last week. But to set the stage for that story, I got to take you back actually further, a couple of years ago. So I said earlier, I think I have one of the best jobs, you know, in the country. And one of those things that makes it a really cool job is that, you know, because we are, you know, the foundation of entrepreneurship, we often have other countries ask us to come participate and provide counsel on priorities. And so it was at the invitation of the Bangladesh government and the permission of the State Department. In August of 2010, I went to Bangladesh. And I did a series of university lectures there, you know, basically extolling the virtues of entrepreneurship, embracing entrepreneurship, Now, let me put a little context in this. Bangladesh, anybody been there? Okay, a couple. You know, it's not, you know, it's the politically correct term is a developing nation. I guess it's kind of pejorative to say third world country. But it's not what you might say, the comforts, the creature comforts, the infrastructure, am I right? I mean, the stuff I experienced in Bangladesh changed me forever. You know, poverty like you've never seen before. Babies that are intentionally maimed to be used as props in panhandling. I went to the central marketplace in Dhaka, and like an idiot, like a really big idiot, I waved off my attaché from the embassy. I'm like, oh, come on. I'm a big fat American. Who's going to hassle me? I'll go walking in there all by myself. Westerners stick out, such that I had a woman who could probably have played for the NFL for the swiftness with which she approached me, out of nowhere, run up to me and thrust her infant onto my chest. You know, take my baby, give it a better life. That's the context I want to set for this story. So in that backdrop, you know, I did experience a lot of really positive things too, because the people are so engaging. And these lectures that I got to go do and see, you know, I saw some genuine interest. It's just they lack so many of the things that we take for granted here. But I did meet a very special person. This is my good friend, Soel Chaudhry. And Soel does not come from a family of privilege. Soel does not have the right last name. You know, it's a parliamentary government there. They have a figurehead president. But the truth of the matter is more like an oligarchy. There's about 24 very connected, very wealthy families that run the country. And in that backdrop, this young kid, you know, with no advantage to his name, you know, not unlike our namesake and our founder, Mr. K, who did not grow up in a family of privilege, he has embraced entrepreneurship as a way to take his country from what it is as a developing nation, a third world nation, a nation in which the average worker earns $1 a day. $1 per day, if you have a job. But Soel, you know, took on this mantle of, I want to promote entrepreneurship, I want to be that leader in my country. Another kind of factoid about Bangladesh, it has the highest population density of any country in the world. 160 million people on the smallest amount of land of any country in the world. 75% of the population is under the age of 40, based upon the mortality rate there. But here he is, championing the cause. You know, my last day in Dhaka, because of all the hospitality that was shown to me, I hosted a private dinner at my hotel, and I invited all the dignitaries that I had met. You know, very credentialed people, CVs, you know, as long as my arm, multiple PhDs. But I also had to invite Soel, because he was so inspirational. You know, and trust me, he has to convince, he's got to win this over one person at a time. All the dignitaries showed up in beautiful clothing. Pictures I've shown friends and family asked, you know, was there a wedding they were going to afterwards? And I said, no, that's just the way it's done. Soel shows up, and he's got this beautiful gift for me, this planter. It had, you know, coconut cups on the planter and then plants inside. For those of you who do international travel, it's like, you know, 3 violations of customs, right? And it was so beautiful, and it was so thoughtful. And it pained me to even try to understand how much he had to pay for this. He even had a brass plaque with my name and thank you made on it. I was so, you know, upset that I had to leave it. I shot like 20 pictures of it. When I saw him last week in Rio, and we were catching up over the 2 years that we'd been apart, I thanked him again. I said, by the way, I want to thank you for that very thoughtful gift that you gave me when we were together. With tears streaming down his face, he was in disbelief that I even remembered him. I said, remember it? Are you kidding me? I pulled out my phone, picture. He said to me, you honor me with this memory. that really starts kind of messing with your heartstrings when you have that kind of an experience. So I said, all right, enough of that, because I'm too macho to get all teary-eyed and weepy. I know you had charity water yesterday, and had you all crying in the aisles. But I said, you know, catch me up. What's been going on? And the sad truth of it is, he's been having a hell of a battle. Because the forces that be don't understand this yet. They don't embrace the notion of entrepreneurship as a policy priority. Such that he has subsequently been arrested, detained for days, he's disappeared from the streets. He's always been released. He's a slick, fast talker. I think part of the reason why they keep letting him go is they can't quite figure him out. If he really did have a nefarious intent, I think they probably figured he'd be a lot, I don't know, slimier. He's been personally threatened, you know, with his life, his property. And I said to him, Soel, this stresses me to understand that. I mean, look around. What hardship did any of us endure to be here, right? But this is what he's doing. And he says to me with the same level of energy that I saw 2 years ago in Dhaka, I'm okay, Mr. Thom, I'm okay. This is going to be good. We're going to transform Bangladesh. I've been working on the president for the last couple of years. The president is finally starting to understand it. And as he embraces it, I'm hopeful he'll take it through Parliament. Okay, good enough. So we went on and had the conference. And as I say, 1,500 people, lots of great events. I got to chair a couple panel discussions. And I lost track of Soel for about 24 hours. Wednesday morning, I saw him, and he was clearly shaken. The usual happy Soel that I knew was very distressed. And I said, Soel, what's wrong? He said, my president passed away last night. This just happened last week. So there the two of us were standing in Rio. And now all of a sudden, I'm in full-on panic. Because what this means is he doesn't even know if he's going to be readmitted into the country. He was kind of traveling under a get-out-of-jail-free card from the president that had just passed away. I talked to him for a little while longer. I said, so I beg you, you need to cool it. Go underground. Let's hope they let you back in the country. And you just need to lay low for a while. And he considered it. He has this kind of, this tick like, yes, of course. And I know it's a placation. He's just placating me, right? But he says, God will make all things good. He's got similar phrases. Again, I was very, very distressed, but I said, okay, think about what I said. And he did. He took it to heart. And I knew for a fact he was going to start laying low. And I knew for a fact he was going to think about his own safety. And I knew that for about an hour. And then I saw him publicly signing. That's the president of Global Entrepreneurship Week, Jonathan Ortman's another friend of the foundation. And there he is in front of all the international cameras, publicly signing on behalf of Bangladesh to be the official Global Entrepreneurship Week partner for 2013. So I snapped this pic mainly to refrain from my urge to snatch him by the ear, run him out of the tent and scold him like I would one of my children. But I thought a little better of that, waited for this to happen, and I took him aside and I'm like, so help me understand, what are you thinking? He said, it's too important. If my journey ends in pursuit of this, somebody else will pick it up. But we have to continue the progress forward. That is an incredibly humbling experience. It helps me be reaffirmed in the value of the work that we have to do with the foundation, and by extension, the work and commitment you all have to the community that we're all involved in, based upon this common interest. So I'm going to close with a favor to ask all of you. If anybody here has enjoyed this conference or we have touched your life in any way, please do me one favor. Add Soel's Twitter handle, Yal Bangladesh. That's his website. The site's out of date, but he's pretty active on Twitter. I am happy to report, as of Tuesday this week, I did get confirmation he was permitted back into the country. I would say I was hopeful that he was laying low, but I've been watching his Twitter feed and know he's not. If you get a moment, let him know and remind yourself that we're all part of this community and we're in it together. Because I promise you, if we make the world a better place in places like Bangladesh, the good old US of A will benefit as well. If I can ask you to do that, please understand you'll take my great appreciation for doing so. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the conference.